In our number 9 spot today we have Annabelle. It's not just a movie, folks, there really is a very real doll that the tales have been inspired by. The doll now resides in the Warrens Occult Museum, where it absolutely belongs, but where did it come from? Well, there was once a college student named Donna who received the doll as a gift from her mother, who had purchased it from an antique store. Donna and her roommate started to notice some pretty creepy things happening and swore that the doll was moving. They said it would appear in different places and positions throughout their apartment before things began to worsen. Donna began to find notes that said help in her apartment, and one night she found the doll in a different position and covered in some sort of red substance. The girls then decided to contact a medium who solidified all of their beliefs and told them that the doll had been possessed by the spirit of someone who was killed in their apartment building. For some reason, the girls didn't immediately get rid of the doll, and the story goes that their friend Lou, who was at the girls' apartment, heard strange noises one night and went to investigate, and this is when he was attacked and killed by Annabelle. The girls finally contacted a priest who told them that the doll was possessed by a demon straight from hell, and then he put them in contact with Ed and Lorraine Warren, paranormal investigators. The two of them tried to do an exorcism on the doll, but it apparently failed, which is why it is now kept in a glass box at their museum. In our number 8 spot today we have the Goddess. This statue is actually called the Goddess of Death, or sometimes the Woman from the Lem. This artifact is made out of limestone, and it was created sometime around 3500 BC, and it was found in Cyprus in 1878. Over the years it has belonged to many different families who all have been ruined and dismantled by death. After the first 6 years of ownership, all 7 members of the first family died. It then moved on to a second owner, and after 4 years, death began to come to him and his family as well. There was then a long period where it was unclaimed, but once the third family got a hold of it, several members of that family began to die as well. The third family ended up turning it over to the Royal Scottish Museum, where it thankfully still resides, hopefully to never ruin another family again. In our number 5 spot today we have Robert the Doll. Annabelle gets a lot of attention for being a haunted doll, but Robert is just as terrifying. Swear to God, guys, the door just opened on its own. Robert the Doll's trying to come in right now. Robert the Doll was a childhood birthday gift from a grandfather to his grandson, who is also named Robert, but more often went by Gene. The story claims that while growing up with Robert, Gene would often be heard by his parents in his bedroom having conversations with himself in 2 entirely different voices. His parents would sometimes be woken up in the middle of the night to the sound of Gene screaming, only to find him completely frightened in bed with overturned furniture around him. Gene would blame Robert for all of the strange happenings, and at the time, no one really believed him. Gene kept Robert into adulthood, and it became what people would describe as an unhealthy relationship. Apparently, Gene took Robert everywhere with him and spoke as if he was a living entity rather than a doll. Okay, this story is already not great, but surprisingly, it gets worse. Gene lived in a house as an adult that was called the Artist's House. Robert would be left in the upstairs window where children in the area reported seeing the doll disappear and reappear, and they all chose to just stay clear of the house. After Gene passed away in 1974, a woman named Myrtle purchased the house, and apparently Robert as well. Visitors of the house could swear they could hear footsteps and giggling coming from the attic where Robert was, and some even claimed to see the doll's expression change if someone spoke poorly of Gene. Myrtle reported Robert moving around the house on his own, and after 20 years she decided that she had had enough and donated him to a museum. Robert still lives in the museum where he is safely locked up, but it is said that he still likes to place a little curse on those who take his photo without permission. The walls of the museum near Robert's glass case are riddled with notes from previous visitors and naysayers who are begging Robert for his forgiveness and asking him to remove any curse he has placed on them. In our number 4 spot today we have the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This diamond has an extremely controversial history, and it is the source of a lot of debate, but regardless of the ongoing conversations over who really owns it, we are here to talk about the curse that this stone is said to hold. This diamond dates back thousands of years, and its curse is said to only affect men. It is said that the jewel can bring about great wealth, but it can also bring great misfortune as well to those who own it. Folklore states that, quote, "He who owns this diamond will own the world, but will also know all its misfortunes. Only God or women can wear it with impunity." Throughout the history of the diamond, it was passed among many people and rulers who all fought bloody battles while in possession possession of it. Every prince who had it is said to have ultimately either lost their power or their life while in possession of it as well. Part of the controversy of the diamond is how it ended up in the hands of the British royal family during colonization in the 1800s. Ever since then, it has only been worn by female monarchs, including Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. The diamond now resides in the crown of the Queen Mother and is on display in the Jewel House at the Tower of London. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Great Bed of Ware. I definitely wouldn't necessarily expect to see a bed as I waltz through a museum, but the Bed of Ware is actually one of the Victoria and Albert Museum's biggest attractions. This lavishly decorated bed is said to have been built in the 15th century for King Edward IV by a carpenter named Jonas Fosbrook. After a while, it is said that this bed began to be passed between the inns of Ware, which led to more common folk being able to get their shut-eye in this elaborate bed. Here's where the tale turns. It is said that once more people began sleeping in this bed, they also began covering it in graffiti and carvings. Apparently, this disrespect for what was said to have once been a regal item angered the ghost of the man who made it. This is where the curse comes into play. It is now said that anyone who dare try and sleep in the bed, unless you're a noble of course, will be attacked by the ghost of Fosbrook. He makes it his business to ensure that the bed only sees visitors who are fit for it. In our number 1 spot today, we have Old Nick. Old Nick is often referred to as the Swansea Devil, and his story dates back to the 1890s, although he now resides in the Swansea Museum. So back in the 1890s, there was the prestigious St. Mary's Church located right in the center of town. The church decided to do some renovations and they put out some ads to hire someone. When a local builder applied for the job and was turned down, he had a major overreaction and decided he wanted to get some kind of revenge. He went and bought the row of cottages that lay next to the church and then demolished them all. In their place, he built large brick offices, and then he commissioned the carving of Old Nick and placed him right on top of the office building looking down at St. Mary's Church. Legend goes that he even placed the curse himself by saying, quote, "When your church is destroyed and burnt to the ground, my devil will remain laughing." Some years later, during World War II, a German blitz came through the town and it left most of the town, including St. Mary's, completely destroyed and burnt to the ground. But the office building with Old Nick was undamaged and remained standing. For a while, Old Nick seemed to kind of disappear, but once he resurfaced, there was a petition to put him back to where he was before, as well as a subsequent counter petition to put him far, far away from the rebuilt St. Mary's Church. As of now, Old Nick resides behind glass in the Swansea Museum, and it is said that he is enclosed in glass, more for our protection than his. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Anna Baker's wedding dress. In 1836, a man named Elias Baker purchased a mansion in Altoona, Pennsylvania and moved his small family in. Elias's oldest daughter was named Anna, and when she fell in love with a steel worker, things took a dark turn. Anna's father didn't want her dating this man, but she kept doing it in secret. The story goes that Anna and the man planned a secret wedding and were going to elope. Unfortunately, Elias found out and freaked out. He apparently purchased the steel mill that the man worked for and then forced him to have to move to an entirely different city so as to prevent him from being able to continue seeing Anna. Anna, of course, was furious with her father, and I'm sure this was only made worse by his decision to offer other men to her, to which she of course declined because that's just weird. Anna instead locked herself in a room with her wedding dress that she never got to wear. Anna unfortunately never married after that and spent the rest of her life being terribly upset about the whole incident. After her death, it is said that her anger and despair ended up going into the wedding dress. Members of the Baker family reported seeing the dress in different places around the house, despite no one moving it themselves. Some have even reported seeing Anna's spirit dressed in the gown around the house as well. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Golden Eagle. This car was a 1964 Dodge 330 limited edition, and it has been blamed for the death of around 14 people, which, how do we even let it get that out of control? It is said that the car started out as a police car originally, but there were 3 officers assigned to this car who all ended up taking their lives and other people's lives in horrible ways. Not in the car, but still super weird that this all seemed to happen after they had been using the cars for work. Because of this strange correlation, it ended up being sold off to another man. Throughout the 80s and 90s, it is said that because of the rumored cursed car, it became a point of interest for vandals. People began vandalizing the car only to meet their own untimely untimely fates, which were all met in strange ways. For example, it was said that one vandal died from being struck by lightning. It is said that the curse is so strong that one person decided to merely touch the car and it sent him into madness, as he went on to commit atrocious crimes after that I cannot even detail here on YouTube. The car now belongs to Wendy Allen, who supposedly collects and decorates haunted cars for a living, so it seems as though it's finally found its home, far, far, far away from anyone else. In our number 8 spot today we have the Blurry Stone. For hundreds of years, the Blurry Stone has resided within Blurry Castle, which is near Cork, Ireland. The stone is a piece of limestone, and legend says that those who give the stone a smooch will then be given the gift of the gab. This little smooch can bestow the power of being able to talk your way out of any situation, which would be incredibly useful, but there are those who always try to indulge in too much of a good thing. The issues start when you attempt to take a piece of the stone, no matter how small, away from its home. Those who don't follow the rules and take the stone end up being cursed with bad luck. Every year the castle receives parcels from greedy tourists who tried their luck at stealing portions of the stone. These parcels are returned with the intention of lifting the curse of misfortune. It is said that once the stone is returned, the curse will be lifted, which is most definitely good news. So I guess the moral of this curse, however, is to not be greedy and to just follow the rules. In our number 7 spot today we have the Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army was discovered in China, and it is a massive piece of funerary art that is thought to be one of the most massive archaeological finds of modern times. It truly is incredible, and it's something that's been attracting tourists from all over the world since its discovery, but for those who did the discovering, well, things haven't been going so well. In 1974, there were 7 farmers who happened to stumble upon this huge discovery, and you would think that this would come with some kind of a reward, but instead, things have been going terribly for them. Soon after the discovery, the government claimed their farmland. After this, their homes were demolished in order to make way for the exhibition halls and gift shops that were to come. They didn't just get nothing for the discovery, they ended up losing because of it. This is exactly why many people believe that perhaps with the unearthing of this huge piece of art, they also dug up some sort of curse that was buried long ago. In our number 6 spot today we have the Myrtles Plantation Mirror. Myrtles Plantation is located in St. Francisville, Louisiana, and it is said to be one of the most haunted places in the entire world, which seems like that would make a lot of sense. One of the reasons for this spooky reputation is because of a mirror that resides inside of it. It is said that this mirror holds the spirit of Sarah Woodruff and 2 of her children. Legend goes that a woman named Chloe was a slave at the plantation, and she drew up a sort of plan to get revenge on the owners of it, Sarah and her husband. Chloe baked a cake full of poison for them, but in the end, the rest of the family, except for the husband, ended up consuming the poisonous cake. When they passed away, it is said that their spirits went into the only mirror that was uncovered at the time, thus this haunted mirror was born. People who have since visited the plantation have claimed to see the family in the reflection, as well as handprints on the glass, despite the continuous polishing. In our number 5 spot today we have tap shoes. These tap shoes were listed on eBay, and they are cute as can be. They're black shiny ones with a red bow to tie them together. They look recital ready, but apparently they haven't been used in a long time, and the reason behind it all is chilling. Legend goes that these shoes once belonged to a little girl who loved to dance. At some point, the shoes were retired, and she would go on to meet an untimely fate. The shoes ended up being placed with other old memento items and put in a closet and sort of forgotten about. The shoes, as well as the other items with it, ended up being part of an estate sale years later, but the spirit of the person who passed may have already had some other ideas about what they wanted to happen to the shoes. The seller of the shoes reported that there were mysterious happenings surrounding the shoes as they were clearing out their late aunt's house, the person who was the owner of the shoes. They explained that there were mysterious knocking sounds coming from inside of the closet, almost as if the shoes were tapping by themselves. Also, as it turns out, the house had quite a gruesome history that included killings, so if not the aunt's ghost, perhaps there's another one lurking somewhere in there. In our number 3 spot today we have the water jug. Okay, estate sales are weird places. There are weird things there, some quirky items, but this has got to be one of the strangest on a whole bunch of different levels. It's a decorative drinking jug, but it's being held in a miniature cart that's being pulled by a porcelain donkey. I truly could not make that item up, nor could I make up the fact that this kitschy item is also apparently haunted. The seller of this item spoke about how he grew up with the item around as it was always displayed at his grandmother's house and that she always kept it full of water. This was all fine and dandy until after she passed away and he was taking care of the estate and he bumped into it. How was this jug filled with water when no one was there to fill it? He thought that perhaps it was just old leftover water and he just ignored it, but the same thing seemed to happen repeatedly. And it wasn't even like the water level was staying the same. It would increase, seemingly all on its own. The seller decided that this was not an item that they wanted to hold on to and decided it would be best to pass on to someone who is ready to take on this mysterious, strange object. In our number 2 spot today we have Leta the Doll. Before we really dive into this one, can we just acknowledge how all cursed dolls look like they would be a cursed doll? I mean, like Annabelle, Robert, they both totally look like dolls that would be holding a secret, scary curse. And this doll, Leta, is just another one that we can add to that list. Leta is a doll that is said to be around 200 years old and is extremely cursed. This doll is called Leta for short, as its full name is Leta Me Out. Really clever. The doll was originally found underneath a house, which definitely feels like the origin story of a haunted doll. The creepy discovery came 47 years ago. Leta still lives with the man who found him. The hauntings of Leta include things like the doll walking around on its own at night, the owners finding objects around the house that have been moved into odd places. Some people have even seen Leta move right in front of their own eyes, and the owner also reports finding little doll-sized scuff marks around the home as well. It is said that this doll once belonged to someone who passed away while holding it, thus their spirit became trapped inside of the doll. Apparently one day in an interview about Leta, as the interviewer was asking questions about the person who passed, the doll began to move in her lap. Yeah, no thank you. Leta has his own Instagram and Facebook page in case you want to hear more about all of the creepiness surrounding this cursed doll. In our number 1 spot today we have the mask. This metal mask resembles the face of a monkey. It's definitely already a little strange looking, but the story is even more interesting. According to the seller of this item, they explained that they acquired this mask in Thailand, but not before they experienced a supernatural battle where a witch used spells to bind the spirit of a jinn to the mask, trapping it in. Since then, the mask is said to be full of supernatural powers, some of which could bring benefits, but it takes a whole pile of work. This mask is said to have the ability to fend off vampires as well as potentially bring riches to its owner, but it needs some things in return. The entity in the mask needs regular offerings of food and drink, and it also requires the owner to meditate in front of it for 20 minutes 3 times a day. Talk about high maintenance. If a person refuses to do these things while in possession of the mask, it is said that a cruel fate awaits them. I mean, what do you expect when you anger an ancient spirit? Starting off in our number 10 spot we have the statue. This statue, or bust, is said to have been made by a man named William who enjoyed making these sorts of things out of clay. Unfortunately, however, legend goes that this specific statue was made on the same day that William was crushed to death during a tragic work accident. A co-worker of his who showed up to work the following day found that this statue was still there, so he took it home with him. For a while he kept the statue hidden, but when he took it out to display it, things started to go awry. It started with just a heavy and uninviting feeling, but soon things escalated. He began to hear doors slamming on their own, only to go and find them wide open. If anything was placed next to the statue, the next time he would find it completely shattered, and at one point he found the statue in a position that he never placed it in. He finally had the last straw when he saw a dark, shadowy figure, or a sort of mist, moving around near where he placed the statue. After this, he was so spooked he had a friend list the item for him on eBay because he just simply needed to get rid of it. In our number 9 spot today we have Uluru Rock. Uluru Rock is a large sandstone formation that is located in the southern part of the Northern Territory in Australia. It is sometimes known as Ayers Rock, but regardless of what it is called, this area is sacred for the people indigenous to the land. This is part of the reason that those who visit the rock are asked to not take anything from the site. Despite this, people of course still choose to smuggle pieces of the rock out of the area and home with them. Other than the bad karma and just in general feeling like a bad person for doing the one thing you're asked not to do, as it turns out this rock may hold a more sinister secret. Those who have stolen rocks from the Uluru have experienced things like extremely bad luck, severe illness, and sometimes even the death of those they love. The curse these rocks hold is seemingly so bad that it is very common for the company company that runs the tours of the formation to receive letters of apology that contain the stolen rocks. Apparently these letters come so often, at least one a day is expected. Maybe this is a weird coincidence, but it seems to be happening a little too often for that to be the explanation. In our number 8 spot today we have the beds. Back in 1986, couple Deborah and Alan Tolman moved into a new home with their children in Wisconsin. The following year they bought a second-hand set of bunk beds for their kids for $100, but as it would turn out, they bought much more than they had originally bargained for. When they brought the bunk beds into their home, they clearly must have brought something else along with it. It started when they began to see strange shapes in their home, and they would hear disembodied voices that, despite how hard they tried, they could not find the source of. They found themselves fighting with clocks and radios that turned on by themselves. They would find furniture that had moved seemingly all by itself, and sometimes they'd even see an apparition of an old woman. In the end, they not only threw the beds in the landfill, but they also moved from the home just to be safe. As far as we know, the beds remained in the landfill, but who's to say for sure? In our number 7 spot today we have the Crying Children paintings. These paintings were a series created by an Italian painter who was known as Giovanni Bregolin, but his name was really Bruno Amarillo. Bruno was born in Venice in 1911 and fought in World War II, which ended up being the inspiration for a lot of his paintings. During his time in the war, he saw a lot of suffering, and this is where he got the idea for the series of Crying Children paintings. After the paintings were sold, there began to be reports of fires in all of the places where the paintings were held. While this could have just been a strange coincidence, the weirdest part is that the paintings always remained intact while everything else around them was burned. This quickly became the most talked about thing and was on the front of every newspaper, and the paintings quickly gained the nickname Diablo. It caused the paintings to end up being replicated and mass-produced, but none of the replicas hold quite the same powers as the originals. In our number 5 spot today we have the Goblet. This is an item that was found in a museum, but it was a museum of specifically haunted things, so I feel like it still counts. This goblet is said to have been used for rituals of necromancy, which poses a few questions for me personally. What did they put in it and presumably drink out of it? Holy water? Wine? Blood? All the above? Who knows? Either way, here's the real kicker. This goblet was of course for sale on eBay because why not? And the seller was claiming that it has an amazing energy to it. Okay. What kind of energy? Well, they said that some find it strangely positive, but that many perceive it as negative and malignant. Alright. Don't think I'll be bidding on that auction, to be perfectly honest. In our number 3 spot today we have doorknobs. To be honest, I wasn't expecting to ever hear about haunted doorknobs, but this might just be a thing that really does exist. These doorknobs were listed on eBay, and the seller explained that they were once the knobs seen on the doors at an asylum, which truly lands on the list of creepiest places in the world. Considering everything that is said to have gone on at places like these, it truly doesn't surprise me one bit. We're looking at you, lobotomies and other horrific mental health treatments of the past. These doorknobs must have quite literally opened the door to some terrifying things that I'm sure many of us would prefer to not even think about. According to the eBay listing, the asylum that they came from after it was abandoned is said to have had strange whispers, occurrences, and horrifying noises coming from it. This is all to say that maybe that trip to Home Depot is better than buying antique. Just this one time. In our number 1 spot today we have the carving. This is a carving that was sold on eBay in 2013, which the sellers claimed had been in their family for over 60 years. It was originally found by the seller's grandparents in the attic of their home. This was back in the 1950s, and when it was found, the grandparents asked the original owners of the home where it had come from. They explained that it was a gift from a prisoner who is said to have carved it. The seller explained in their post that, quote, anyone who comes in contact with it seems to feel strange or creeped out by it. The statue mostly didn't cause too much harm. That was until the seller tried to put it on display in their home. Once it was taken out of an old box and placed in a cabinet, strange occurrences began. They said that, quote, I began to experience the television turning off and on, lights coming on in rooms no one was in, the kids' toys coming on in the middle of the night in their room at 3 a.m. At the end of the day, despite the troubles this person had with the statue, they still ended up selling it for $85. Not a bad deal. Get rid of a demon and gain some cash for it.
At number 9 we have the Devil's Rocking Chair. Baggins acquired a rocking chair that was owned by the family whose stories are probably what inspired The Conjuring 3. Now, this was the Devil Made Me Do It case in the early 80s. During stories talking about David Glatzel's possession, Ed and Lorraine Warren said the rocking chair would rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. Now, David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it. So, take that as you will. Now, with all this spooky stuff in mind, Zak Bagans was just sold. He was like, I need this chair. This is, of course, though, a thing that happened on the opening night of the Devil Chair exhibit where he was like, look at this cool chair. 5 people bawled uncontrollably and 1 woman collapsed. So, according to TMZ, just a few hours after Bagan opened the exhibit, he shut down the exhibit. But then, a couple weeks later, opened it back up, less issues. But that opening night started with a bang. On to number 6, John Morell's preserved thumb. And now, I don't know exactly what Zak Bagans is saying about this thumb, but it's not John Morell's. Now, he's probably basing his information off an incredulous book written by Virgil Stewart, and the backstory is, John Morell in this book is said to be an occult leader and the head of the Mystic Clan that's purpose was to steal slaves to plan an overthrowing of authority. But this book was written by Virgil Stewart, who wrote it in an attempt to get more clout after capturing John Morell, who was likely just a horse thief and a slave stealer. Now, Stewart just kind of blew the situation completely out of proportion to try to get more street cred. So while the thumb is real and a real thumb, it's not Myrtles, who probably died in prison and was buried with all of his thumbs on him. And now, that's not to say what it stands for isn't scary. People in Mississippi read the book and believed in it, believed in what Stewart was saying. In Tennessee, they knew the truth because they knew Stewart and he was just fabricating things. But in Mississippi, ooh, Nelly, they were suspicious of one another so much. The summer of 1835, people in Mississippi were killing one another and their innocent slaves on the off chance any of them was part of this Mystic Clan, which is a clan that didn't exist. So now you know the harm in falsifying stories, you can see how this little thumb is a creepy bugger and a symbolism of something bigger than it is. So, worth it in a way to have at the museum. But now on to number 2, a Chris Farley Polaroid. At Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum, he has this celebrity deaths room, which first of all, I think it's really weird for people to fixate on the death of someone they don't know, and I think this item I'm going to talk about is disrespectful. In the celebrity death room, there is a Polaroid of Chris Farley after his overdose that killed him. It was acquired from a police officer that was at the scene. Since I cannot and will not show that photo, just know that it was a photo of his dead body after a drug overdose that visitors have described as sickening, disgusting, shocking, and horrifying. Now, using the image of a dead person, a real person, as a gimmick is in poor taste and shows a lack of empathy on Bagans' behalf, and that scares me, so that's included on this list.
Alright, starting off this countdown, we have the painting of Samantha Houston by Richard King. So this painting doesn't look all that scary. It shows a cute little girl in a pink dress smiling while holding a bunch of pink roses. Honestly, if I didn't know the backstory, I wouldn't regard this as a scary painting. So apparently, this is a painting of a girl who fell to her death after chasing her ball down the stairs. This painting was made in her honor and hung up in the Drizkill Hotel, which is the place that she passed away. Excuse me? The hotel is called Drizkill? Coincidence? I think not. Well, anyways, guests of the hotel have claimed that they feel dizzy and nauseous while around the painting. Others have claimed that they have felt as if they were being lifted off the ground, or have even seen the girl change expressions. Now, some people own replicas of this piece of art, and they too have felt dizzy and nauseous around it. As a result, those people have had to remove those paintings from their home. Although some people have this painting locked away, unfortunately I believe that the original painting still remains on the 5th floor of this hotel. Moving on to number 9, we have the painting called The Left Hand by Theodore Géricault. Now, this painting comes with a dark backstory. Apparently the artist Jean-Louis André Theodore would buy amputated limbs from the morgue as models for his paintings. He would keep these limbs in his house for weeks while he painted them. I mean, of course he couldn't have used his own hand or his friend's hand as a reference. No, he literally gave a new meaning to need a hand? Well, anyway, some people believe that his paintings are cursed by the people whose body parts he used as a reference. Some people have claimed that they have felt a cold hand on the back of their neck, or even felt a slight push while looking at this painting. The scariest fact about this is that Theodore died 8 hours after finishing this piece of work. Thankfully, this particular piece of art is no longer on display. At number 8, we have the painting of Marie Lavo. Now, this image is carefully on display at the New Orleans Historic Voodoo Museum. Some people say that they can feel Marie's cold eyes watching them. Others say that once you see this image, then Marie will haunt you and even will show up in your nightmares. Oh, dang. I guess I won't be sleeping tonight. In fact, tour guides say that whoever wishes to see the painting must go alone. They refuse to go see it themselves. Others also claim that when they take a picture of the painting, their photos won't develop. So go to that museum and check out that painting if you're brave enough. Next up at number 7, we have the painting called Soul Bowl. Now, with a name like that, what do you expect? So this piece of artwork was listed on a website called Trade Me, and the user wanted it out of her life, claiming that it was haunted. So this painting is of a bowl, with the background almost looking like it could resemble the flames of hell. Now along the sides of the painting it reads, "The shape of my soul is a bowl." Creepy. Now, this painting was bought at an antique shop in New Zealand. However, after they brought this painting home, scary things started happening. She claims that some nights the painting would fall off the wall. She also claims that another night she saw a dark silhouette go from her bedroom to the painting. After numerous other paranormal encounters, she decided to sell it. I wouldn't think anyone would want a painting marketed as haunted, but apparently people like to collect spooky things. The painting ended up being sold for $123 to an anonymous buyer. She believes that this buyer took it off of her hands out of good nature and either burned it, locked it away, or tried to get in contact with the spirit. Next up at number 6, we have The Spirit of the Bartender by Will Refuse. Now, I personally love thrift shopping. I love the sustainability aspect of it and how it's better for the environment. Now, I only buy clothes, and I think I'm just gonna stick to doing that because this next individual claims that they bought a haunted painting from the thrift store. Now, in this story, a group of buds moved in together. One roommate bought some furniture and a painting from the thrift store. So this painting was of a ventriloquist dummy looking bartender. He is seen with big eyes and a creepy smile. They claimed that the bartender's eyes would follow you around the room and they felt uneasy about it. One of the guys even claimed that when you are alone with it, you feel like there's another presence with you. 2 months later, things started happening around their house. One day, one of the roommates heard a loud bang at the door, but no one was there. The banging continued, and every time he checked, no one was there. Then he would hear loud footsteps running up and down the stairs. Eventually, one of the roommates moved out and took the painting with him and donated it to the bar that he worked at. But apparently they also experienced paranormal activity and ended up throwing it out. Now, if you research this artist, it shows that he paints a lot of the same things over and over again. It always involves some ventriloquist looking person, and there are different variations of this bartender photo. It's quite creepy. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the painting of Maria Ivanova. Now, this piece of art was painted by a Russian artist by the name of Vladimir Borovikovsky. It was painted in 1797 of a young woman named Maria before she passed away from tuberculosis. Now, people believe that this painting causes bad luck to whoever looks at it. Well, that's great. Looks like I'm getting bad luck and so are all of you, so ooh. They believe that this painting had some sort of power that could cause death to any unmarried girl. Dang it, that's me again. Also, it doesn't help that the girl's last name has Ivan in it. People also blame the painting for a bunch of tragic deaths of young girls that happened around the same time. They believe that their souls are now trapped inside the painting by an evil spirit. Moving on, at number 4, we have the haunted thrifted painting. Again, don't buy your paintings from the thrift stores. So this was posted on Reddit 1 year ago by the user Young Balsamic. He claims that one day he was thrift shopping when he came across this painting. Now, he did claim that he does like creepy dark things, so it wasn't too weird for him to buy this scary painting. Now, although this looks badly hand painted, he claimed that the painting spoke to him and he felt overwhelmed like he just had to have it. After a few days, he noticed that his cupboards would open and close, lights would flicker, and things would fall down. He would even hear scratching coming from the wall that the painting was on. Then he started to see a dark figure in his dreams. He said that he would get stuck in some sort of sleep paralysis and he would be visited by a figure with no eyes. He then would start to have the same reoccurring dream every night. He even said he was visited by the faceless people in this painting. That's when he decided to take apart the painting. When he removed the frame, he said that his whole house started to smell like sulfur. He also realized a dark cross was painted on the back of this image. He then put this painting in his basement storage locker where it still remains. He doesn't know what to do with it and is scared to burn it with the fear that he will annoy the demons. I mean, I would just donate it back to the thrift stores, let them deal with it. In our 3rd spot, we have the Portrait of the Doll. Now, unfortunately, this piece does not have any pictures associated with it, and I will explain why. So this is a story of another girl who bought a painting from a thrift store. Don't buy paintings from thrift stores. So, similar to the guy I mentioned before, this girl felt drawn to this particular photo. She felt like she was lured into buying it. This picture was of an old doll. She claims that when she hung it up in her room, she immediately felt like she was being watched. Even her friends that slept over would say the same thing. Now, she doesn't know who the artist is and can't find a picture of the painting online. She thinks that it's an original piece of art. Now, she was getting really scared from this painting that she too hid it in a storage room. Immediately, the uneasy feeling she felt before just stopped. But she claims that whenever she goes down to the storage room, the same feeling overwhelms her. And in our number 1 spot, we have the auctioned painting. Again, unfortunately, I don't have an image of this painting as it was an original and the artist remains unknown. So this person claims that when he was 8 years old, his mother bought a haunted painting from an auction. Now, this painting is of a woman around the age of 30 who is wearing a long bluish gray gown. She is seen standing in front of a veranda with a tea set, kettle, and a plate of cake and sandwiches next to her. They believe that the painting was from around 1900 to 1910. They hung this painting in the hallway, and when they did so, strange activities started happening immediately. Now, they claimed that the hallway was always warm since it was summer, but when the painting was hung up, the hallway was always ice cold. All the kids in the family were also scared of this painting. In fact, his little 6-year-old brother would walk on the other side of the hallway. Now, at night, they would often hear whispering coming from the hallway. And one time, they reported seeing a flash of blue in the corner of their eye, like the dress was coming out of the painting. Now, one day the little brother even tripped down the stairs and said he felt a cold hand push him. And even their pets would growl at the painting. Eventually, they decided to sell the painting to an arts collector. He currently keeps this painting locked up in his basement. Starting off this countdown, we have The Violinist. This was posted 1 year ago on Reddit by the user Harabovsky. He stated that he worked as an aide for an elderly woman, and as a result, he would have to run errands for her. One time, he went thrift shopping and came across a painting of an old man playing the violin. He bought it for $1 and hung it up in his living room. He claimed that looking at the painting gave him inspiration. However, after a couple of days passed, weird stuff started to happen. The first being that he started to smell smoke being emitted from the painting. He said that it wasn't like a cigarette type smoke smell, but more like a bonfire smoke smell. Then little things would happen, like his microwave door would open randomly and he would hear footsteps. He ended up taking the painting out of his apartment and locking it up in his car trunk. But the next day, he almost got into a big car accident. People then commented on his post saying that they believe he is being haunted by a Jewish demon, since the man in the painting is believed to be Jewish as he is wearing a yarmulke. They believe that this spirit is a dybbuk, which is mentioned in Jewish folklore and has the power to cling onto an individual and possess them. In our 9th spot, we have The Girl in the Red Dress. So this next painting was bought from the thrift store. Again, come on, like I mentioned in my last video, never buy paintings from the thrift stores. Too many of them are either cursed or haunted. I mean, I wouldn't want to take the risk, but you do you. The Reddit user XD5133 shared this story 1 year ago. He said that his friend bought this painting because it was super creepy. He claims that both the dog and the girl in the photo look like demons, and that's what enticed him to buy it. I mean, interesting taste, but I don't judge. Then he claims that shortly after hanging the photo, they saw paw prints on the wall leading up to the painting. They don't have any pets and have no clue how the paw prints got on the wall. Nonetheless, he is convinced that the painting is haunted by the dog and its owner. Moving on to number 8, we have The Child's Painting. This next painting has a very tragic past. So it's an abstract piece that people interpreted as the world seen through the eyes of a child. Like, the blue is the sky, orange and yellow is the sun, and green is the earth. So the painting was made by a boy named Danny before he passed away a year later from terminal cancer. He was 11 at the time. The mother then sold this painting on eBay after struggling to live with it. The mother claims that Danny remained attached to the painting. When they contacted the current owner, the owner said that the painting would shift on the walls all the time. A medium also managed to get in contact with Danny through this painting. However, the thing that made the owner the most unsettled was the words written on the back of the painting. It says, 1, 2, 3, 4, all good children get to heaven. They don't know who wrote this message, but it wasn't Danny. Making our way down the list at number 7, we have The Man in Armor. This was posted by the Reddit user DevilishAngel75. Unfortunately, there are no pictures of this painting. However, the user described it as a 3-foot tall painting of an old man wearing Spanish-looking armor. He claims the painting was extremely detailed and the frame was made out of carved wood. Now, his mom actually bought this painting for him, not knowing that it was haunted. What a thoughtful gift. The first night of owning the painting, his AC unit fell right out of his window. The second night, a bunch of his knickknacks fell off his dresser. This led him to talk to the man in the painting every night before bed. He would ask him nicely to just behave. And this worked, until he stopped having the conversation with him. Then another night, he felt the corner of his mattress lift and then thump down on his box spring. The last straw was when his mother heard someone approach her bedroom door and whisper to her through the door. After that, they took the painting to the landfill to discard it there. So, don't worry guys, the ghost is just haunting the landfill now. Moving on, in our 6th spot, we have the painting from another dimension. The Reddit user Marco397 posted this story about 3 weeks ago, so this is a fairly recent encounter with a haunted painting. This user claims that he bought a cursed painting from a flea market. He was browsing when this painting caught his attention. Well, yeah, it caught my attention too, but not in a good way, just from how horrifying it is. But apparently, he really liked it because he bought it. A couple of weeks later, he moved and was unpacking his boxes when he decided to take a picture of the current state of his room and send it to his mom. The painting ended up being in the shot, and when he reviewed the photo, you could see a weird distortion in the photo, almost like a figure was standing in front of him. A couple weeks later, he took another photo, and it appeared as if a ghostly handprint with claws was in the photo. Upon doing research on the painting, someone told him that it might have been painted by someone with schizophrenia. They said if you join the faces in half, together it will create a new face. When he did this, it revealed a very creepy image of an alien-type creature. They believe that the person painted the creature that they were seeing from another dimension. The painting remains in the owner's hands, locked away in his house. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Rainwoman. So this painting has a really creepy backstory. The artist Svetlana Telets claimed that she felt a hand guiding her while she was painting this picture. So basically, the spirit that made her draw the image looks exactly like that. Creepy. Here's something even more unsettling. Everyone who has owned the painting has returned it. The first woman bought it and called the artist begging for her to take the painting back. She said she couldn't sleep and felt like there was something watching her. The next man returned the painting after saying he kept dreaming of the woman. He said that the shadow of the woman would just walk around him. Then the last person bought it regardless of the other 2 incidents. He claimed that he wasn't frightened by it. Boy, did he change his mind quickly. He claimed that her white eyes were haunting him. He started to see them everywhere and he would get terrible random headaches. Other people that have viewed the painting in person claim to either see the woman smiling or looking at them angrily. Moving on to number 4, we have the Demon Nun. Just take a look at this painting and try to convince me that this painting isn't haunted. Just look at it, it's terrifying. So this painting was found at a thrift store. Shocker. I mean, what thrift store would see this and then try and sell it? Like, no, I'd get rid of that so fast. Anyways, people that have seen this painting commented on the post saying that they felt very uneasy and that they ended up having dreams of this demon nun. Another person commented saying that they are convinced that it is haunted by the Valak demon as seen in the movie The Conjuring 2 and The Nun. What's creepy is the fact that both the crosses on this piece of art are inverted, representing Satanism. So, what do you think of this piece of art? Did somebody make it just as a Halloween decoration? Or did somebody make it to summon evil spirits? Or is an evil spirit attached to it? In our 3rd spot, we have the Anguished Man. This painting is known to be one of the most haunted paintings in the world. So the story goes that a man named Sean Robinson inherited the painting from his grandmother. The artist of the painting still remains unknown, but it is said that the artist mixed their own blood in with the paint. Then they ended up taking their own life shortly after the painting was completed. Sean's grandmother was convinced that the painting was haunted. She claimed that she would hear screaming or crying and would often see a shadowy figure. As a result, she kept it locked away in her attic. They believed that it was haunted by the ghost of the artist. When Sean inherited the painting, his son was pushed down the stairs by the ghost, his wife felt someone stroking her hair, and a shadow would lurk through the halls. To this day, Sean keeps the painting locked up in a secure location. He also claims that people are making replicas and selling them online, but the real haunted painting still remains in his possession, carefully locked away. Coming in our 2nd spot, we have the boy in the striped shirt. What's so terrifying about an innocent painting of a young boy? Nothing, unless the spirit of the boy comes out to haunt you at night. And that's exactly what happened with this next family. So the family that owned this painting said that it was left inside of the new home that they moved into. And for a good reason. They left the painting up in the hallway for the longest time since they were still unpacking and had a lot more important things to deal with than removing the painting. But the owners did say that whenever they walked by the painting, they felt like it was watching them. Then one night, while one of their sons was sleeping, he claimed that this boy visited him in his dreams. As nights passed, this young boy ended up making its way into all the family members' dreams, haunting them. Then that's when strange activities started occurring around the house. They would wake up to random things like their socks missing only to be found under their bed, or they would find their slippers had been moved. Now, they don't have a clue to who this boy is, but they are certain that his spirit is attached to the painting and is haunting them. As a result, they ended up removing the painting and locking it up in their basement storage room. After that, all the paranormal activity stopped, and they were never visited by the boy in their dreams again. And in our number 1 spot, we have the sealed painting. The next painting was bought from a yard sale. The man who bought the painting was drawn to it. He thought that the painting could be worth some money since it looked pretty vintage and the frame detail was incredible. He had the painting hanging in his home for quite some time before strange things started happening. It started when one night he woke up from a loud bang. Turns out the painting had fallen off the wall. But he dismissed this because the painting was heavy. Unusually heavy, he said. This continued repeatedly. That's when he decided that he was going to reframe the art with a different frame that was much lighter. And boy, was that the worst decision. He said that it was super hard to break open the frame. He uploaded images that showed how thick the frame was and how sealed it was. However, he finally managed to get it open and remove the painting. He believes that when he did this, he unleashed some sort of evil spirit. Every night at the same time, he would wake up with the sweats, feeling really sick. During the day, strange things would happen, like he would hear door slams and whispers coming from the room that held the painting. After attributing it to the painting, he decided to lock it back up in its frame. From there, the unusual activity stopped. So, he learned his lesson. Sometimes, paintings are securely locked up in its frame for a reason.